Shankara Parvati Pati Mahadev Sri Shankara.
Namaste, it is Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your highest evolvement. I am so excited right now to be back behind the microphone after a 3-week hiatus when I was traveling around Europe. I went to Formentera, Spain, an island that is close to Ibiza. And then I went to Paris with my boyfriend. We went down to the south of France by train for my cousin's wedding in the countryside, and then went back to Paris. Then I went off to Mykonos, Greece, to meet up with 3 of my girlfriends from Bangladesh that I stayed with when I was in Bangladesh. I met them when I was in college in Boston. And he went on tour with his clients. He went to Croatia, Czech Republic, Germany, and a bunch of places. And finally, on Monday, late at night, after a 30-hour plane journey, I'm the worst at booking tickets. I finally got back. I accidentally booked my return trip from Athens instead of Mykonos, so I had to fly to Athens, spend a few hours in like an airport hotel, which was a very trippy experience. I realized I booked someone's house, not a hotel. And then London, I had a 7-hour layover in London, and then it was supposed to be an 11-hour plane trip from London to LA, ended up being delayed and sitting in the plane, so 14 hours back, and just a really long journey. And it took me 3 days, now it's Friday, to finally feel like myself again, not just because of the journey, but just being on the road for 3 weeks. And I can only record these episodes when I feel like my highest self, which is like a full-time job in itself, because we have to make sure everything in our life is aligned. Our sleep, our food, our exercise, and even the energies around us, which can be hard to control when you're on the road, especially when you're at weddings and seeing family and missing trains and planes and buses and so many things that can throw you off. So it took me 3 days to integrate, go back in myself, eat my food, have my kitchen, go to yoga, sweat, rejuvenate, be in nature, just connect like back with myself without agendas and to-do lists and people to talk to and all of these things. And it really made me come to this realization of how much I've changed. And I get really excited when I find out how much I've changed. For me, it is an amazing thing, because when you notice something, how you would have reacted differently to a situation in the past than you do now, you see yourself and you realize how the old you maybe would have been reacted a certain way or been totally into this, or maybe a statement that your mom said may have gotten to you before, but now it doesn't bother you. And when we notice that change, we realize that we are living entities and we are growing and we're evolving with the seasons and our cycles and our moods, and all of that is natural and really what makes us human. So it really hit me this year on my trip to Europe, just how much I've grown only in the past year. So things that normally would have really excited me, like sightseeing and trying new restaurants and having an occasional cocktail, actually just didn't interest me at all anymore. And this is saying a lot, coming from a girl who's traveled to over 30 countries and genuinely thought that her purpose on this planet was just to explore. So I'll record a separate podcast episode, but I've been backpacking on my own since I was 15. I've lived in villages and farms, and I've built community centers, and I've worked in slums, and really anything you can imagine I've done in this lifetime, which is probably why now I just feel like I'm over it. And I mean, it's so different also when you go to Europe, which is a place of just like pure enjoyment, versus when you go to the developing world. I think if I had gone to like back to Bali or Thailand or India, I wouldn't have felt this way. But Europe, it's all about just having your coffee and sitting down and shopping and just self-indulgentness. And I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I just stopped seeing the point of seeing yet another museum or another view or another street, and honestly just wanted to spend my days either trying to find a yoga studio or a gym or somewhere that I can move my body, because that's really what I like to do. I like to feel comfortable in my own skin before I go sightsee and see something else. I first have to feel good within myself. And I noticed little things like I used to love going out to eat to restaurants, and I would order all of these things, and it was worth the stomach ache for me. And now I just couldn't even find anything to eat at restaurants, especially in France, south of France, which is like the countryside. There is not a single thing on the menu that is vegan. And I'm not 100% vegan, but I don't want to eat. Well, I don't eat land animals at all, but it was foie gras country. So the wedding I went to, the dinner, the only option was steak with foie gras on top. So luckily I packed some walnuts and goji berries, and that was my dinner. And most of what I ate while I was down there, and really, like, fruits aren't part of the culture, vegetables aren't part of the cultures. When people eat sandwiches, they don't have any form of vegetables on it. And it's funny that we always like look up to France and we're like, oh my God, how did they stay so skinny and they're so healthy, and America is so overweight? But really, that's not what I see at all. I mean, people wake up and they drink coffee. They barely drink water, like a cup of water. They don't even fill it up halfway, and it's like they take a sip and they're done. There's no gyms, there's no form of movement. Like, yes, they're walking all the time, which is great, but that doesn't compensate for the croissants and the prosciutto and the foie gras. Like, foie gras is so inhumane. Like, luckily it's illegal in California, but there it's, I mean, the fact that I was the only person at this massive wedding that doesn't want to eat steak with foie gras on top is very telling of where people are at. And it was really hard for me to just like find foods. Like, I would just go to fruit markets wherever I was, if you guys saw my Instagram story. And normally I don't eat that much fruit because I've had candida in the past and the glycemic load, but really I was like living off of fruit. Like, an apple was like life for me because there was nothing else I could eat. And for me, when I don't have like good food to eat, that really affects me on an energetic level, because food is everything. Food is your energy. Food is your life force. And when you're like living off apples and nuts for like a long time, it's just not enough. So that really affected me. The other thing is so I haven't been a big drinker. Like, the only time I was a drinker was probably my freshman year of college, when I was like, okay, this is the time to like drink. And then like immediately I was like, oh, this isn't for me. So even in college, I was never really a drinker, but I would have an occasional cocktail, like maybe a glass of wine or like a cool cocktail that they had, always low sugar. This time I ordered a cocktail because we were at a beautiful beachy place, and I literally couldn't take 2 sips of it. It just immediately gave me a headache. And I tried having a glass of champagne at the wedding, and I just felt like crap. I felt horrible. And I realized that my body has just cleansed itself to the point that any form of alcohol to me really brings down my mood. And I posted about this in my Mind Body Balancers Facebook group, which I invite you all to join. The link is in the info on SoundCloud and on iTunes. So I posted about how suddenly I can't drink any kind of alcohol, even a sip of it, even just the smell of it. I'm just not vibing with it. And so many people have experienced the same thing. And a lot of it has to do with our vibration at this time. And alcohol really lowers your vibration. So when you drink alcohol, you feel this kind of like low vibration feeling, which is a lot of people enjoy. It makes you kind of loosey and in your body and not in your mind. But at the same time, it promotes agitation and anger and snapping and jealousness, which are all very root chakra related issues. So for me, my vibration has just really, really skyrocketed this year, especially with the amount of personal growth that I've done, that anything that brought me down, my body was rejecting. So I feel really proud of myself about that, actually. And if you're experiencing that, you used to be able to drink and now it's just really not resonating with you, that's what's going on. And it doesn't mean like you have to go 180 degrees today. For me, it was a very gradual process. It was drinking, having a drink every month, every few months, every year. And now to the point that I don't think I will ever drink any kind of alcohol again. And the same has happened with me with kombucha, which I'll do a whole other episode about. So it was amazing. I feel really blessed to be able to travel and be able to see things. And I mean, Mykonos was so beautiful. I love the whole white architecture, and the blue, and white and blue are like totally my colors. And I actually really like Greek food. There's a lot more salads and healthy foods and things like that. So that was definitely my favorite part. And just, of course, spending time with my boyfriend was amazing. But I feel like at this point in my life, just traveling to see things is just kind of a waste of time. And for me right now, I'm on this mission, and people ask me like, "Oh, don't you want a vacation?" And no, frankly, I don't want anything that takes me out of this moment, because I love where I am at right now. And it's been a long time in the making to get here. And it makes me want to cry just saying it, because I was someone who would fight with my parents and just say, I don't want to be with you guys. I don't want to be here. I just want to leave. All I used to think about was, how can I escape? How can I go? And when I would go on a trip, I would try to book one-way tickets so I wouldn't have to come back. And I really wanted to spend my whole life kind of vagabonding around the world. That was my mission at the time. And now to feel like I'm at this place that I have a home that I love. I have a beautiful puppy who I unfortunately had to shave, because when I was gone, my friend was taking care of him. She didn't realize how much he needs to be brushed. So his hair got completely matted. We had to shave him. It's on my Instagram story. It's pretty sad, but it's okay. I have this beautiful love, my twin flame, Steven, who I'm going to do a podcast episode with. And I have all of these things in my life that I don't want to escape from. I love my routine. I love my bed. I love my home. I love waking up in the morning. I love the things available for me in Santa Monica. I mean, it's truly a mecca for health, spirituality, wellness. Even just tonight, I'm going to Unplug Meditation for a book signing. And it's like, I don't want to leave this. This is everything for me right now. And my soul has truly been set on fire. And I've realized that my opportunity cost, which is the economic term for the time you could spend doing something else, is much greater now than it was in my teens and in my earlier 20s, when I didn't really have any better place to be. So the concept of opportunity cost is, there's no such thing as free lunch. If you've ever taken an economics class, that's the first thing they teach you. And it basically means that, let's say I give you a free lunch and I'm paying for your lunch. So you think, oh, it's a free lunch, I'm totally going to go. But what else could you be doing in that time? Maybe you could be working. Maybe you could be making money. Maybe, I don't know, you could be doing something else that it's not really a free lunch, because it's taking away your time from doing something else. So for me, my opportunity cost of just like seeing the Eiffel Tower and like going to see an art museum, it's not worth doing this. Sitting in this chair right now talking to you. Nothing on this planet is worth this. Nothing. Like I've seen a lot in my life. I've seen beauty, I've seen chaos, I've seen everything. And I know my mission is to spread this message and open myself up as a conduit for the greater message of the universe that channels through me. And it is impossible for me to open myself up as this channel when I don't have my basic needs met. And it's just, I don't want an escape. I don't want to, spend the day like hanging out by a pool. Like I'm so committed to this right now. Maybe it will change in a few years. Of course, everything changes. And that's what this podcast episode is really going to be about, which I've been talking for a long time, but, it's to honor that, and it's to honor where you're at this time. And maybe you're not here. Maybe you're somewhere else on your journey. I know for me, if I had listened to this 3 years ago, I'd have been like, girl, you crazy. Like, I want to go to the Amazon and here and there. And I still do want to do these things in my life, but the time for me is not now, because I'm so all in. And my book is sitting in front of me right now. I'm touching my book. This is amazing, because I didn't see my book until yesterday. So my publisher had me like send copies to like different influencers and things like that. So they received their copies while I was on this trip, and I was seeing them on Instagram story, like taking a bath, reading my book. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be home so I can see my book. And it didn't come to me until yesterday. So I was like dying. I was like, okay, breathe, patience, patience, patience. Your book's going to come. It's going to be okay. And finally it's here. And it's so unreal. It's like way bigger than I thought. It's so unreal to see this idea that you thought of has come into the physical plane. Like this book, it is my thoughts, really. It's just, I was sitting in this exact chair, staring at this exact view when I thought of the words, or the better word, let these words come through me, which has now become this physical book, which soon you will be holding in your hands. That is the craziest, trippiest concept to me ever, because our thoughts are creating our realities, and it's not just books that we're creating, but books are just a great example of seeing how your thoughts manifest in the physical world. So I will do another podcast episode of just the book writing process and how I really see it as a birthing process of coming up with the idea and letting it grow and then sending it out into the world, and you don't know what it's going to become. So right now it's like I just gave birth, but like still not fully because it's not out. It's going to be out August 8th. And then also I'm going to be doing a virtual book launch party. So that's going to be a free webinar available to all of you where I'm going to be answering your questions. I'm going to be sharing about the book. We're going to be hanging out. And I will also have that link in the show notes. It's if you just look at the info on iTunes or SoundCloud, you'll find it. So please register and you'll get the email with all the information of how you can participate in the virtual book launch party. So I'm really excited for that because I will be doing some book launches. I'll be doing one at Unplugged Meditation on September 22nd. And I may be doing one before at the Women's Space. So there will be opportunities to see me live, but so many of you are in different parts of the world, and I wanted to have something that all of us, no matter where we are, can come together and participate. So even if you aren't available at that time on that day, it's going to be recorded. So when you register, you'll get the recording of it still emailed to you. So I'm really excited about that. So let's talk about what I really wanted to talk about in this thing was life goes in cycles. And though we think we're each super unique, we really all experience the same emotions. So every mother feels the same way looking at her child. And every wanderlust young person has that same innate desire to see the world. And every elderly person looks back at their life with the same feeling of nostalgia. We feel it to different extents, but really, we are all the same. Repeating history with every birth and every death. And there's something so freeing about that. Our emotions are not our own. They're shared. I look back on college students and I remember once feeling exactly like they did, wanting to go out there and meet people and experience things and go to mixers. And one day I'll look back at myself at this point in my life and I'll say, wow, I had so much energy and such a desire to express and create as I sit in my hammock, chilling in Bali, deep in the jungle, drinking my coconut. So, on my long journey back, I opened my mind up to the universe and thought about these stages of evolution. And I started kind of writing down, okay, well, what are these stages that we all go through? And I came up with 11 stages. And these are stages that I believe all women go through to a certain extent. Some of us, we don't go through all of them. We skip past some, or we're more involved in some stages than others, but we all generally undergo these to a certain extent. And this is geared more towards women because I believe men go through slightly different cycles, which I'll do another podcast episode about. But for women, these stages are more or less universal. And of course, it's not a textbook written rule. You don't have to agree with it. I came up with it, and who knows, maybe next year I won't even agree with it. So I'm just sharing this, how I see things at this point in time. And I would love to share it with you and hear your thoughts as well. So these are the 11 stages of evolution that women typically go through. Stage 1, pure childhood. So stage 1 is when we come into this world, and about the first 11, 12 years of our lives, when we are just pure children. So we are expressed through creativity and imagination, and we are still so connected to our past lives. And when children are born, they are born fully knowing, they remember, they are way wiser than we are. And there are so many cases of young children who have told their moms, I've died in World War II, and like given specific details of what army they were in and who was in their troop. And then they've looked it up in history books, and those people all fully existed. Or other cases, I mean, I can just go on forever about cases of young children remembering their past lives, like to the point of saying a specific house and what the door color was and what their neighbors' names were, and people finding these on maps. There have been thousands and thousands of researched cases about this. If you're interested in this, I recommend the book Many Lives, Many Masters, which is written by a Columbia psychiatrist about his work into past lives. So children are innately born knowing, and that's why they are so serene and playful. They know that life is about enjoyment and curiosity, and at the same time, they're new to their bodies, so they're trying new things and they're testing their limits, and everything is a game for them, and they come from this place of just openness and receptivity that we tend to lose later on in our lives. So pure childhood is such a beautiful place that every single person needs to experience in order to become whole. And unfortunately, many people are deprived from this experience of pure childhood. Many people are given responsibilities that they do not deserve. They should not, a child should not have to be an adult. A lot of children have to take care of their younger siblings. They have to see unfortunate circumstances with their parents, and they're really deprived from these playful years of childhood, which are so integral in our entire psyches and well-being. So we see a lot of imbalances that happen later on in life when people do not have this stage of pure childhood. So imagination, creativity, flow, connection to your past lives and your higher purpose, these are all the themes of stage 1. So I want you to think about your own stage 1 and what that was like. Do you feel like you had a childhood? Do you feel like you were able to play? Do you feel like it was safe to be who you are? Do you feel like you've gotten a chance to experience life without the burden of responsibilities? Were you able to spend time in nature? Did you have siblings or friends or a community to be a part of? So that is stage one. And we can do another podcast episode about traumas in stage one and what that means later on in your life, because most people have experienced a trauma in their childhood, and that can be something as traumatic as their parents divorcing or their house burning down or something like that. Or it could be something as little as kids making fun of you in school, and that really stuck with you. So that's stage one. Stage two, the tweens years. So this is when you begin becoming self-conscious about your appearance for the first time. And your hormones kick in and you develop breasts and pubic hair and you start feeling things, all sorts of things. And you're in love with a boy, but he doesn't care about you. And you're crying and your mom doesn't understand you. And all of these things start happening that you totally did not expect in your childhood years. So in stage two, we, from a biochemical perspective, receive an influx of hormones, which actually makes us emotionally unstable at the time. So if you actually look at the brain chemistry of tweens, they're crazy. So the reason that you're crying when your mom doesn't buy you those limited to jumper pants, I don't know, I would cry for shit like that, is because you're batshit crazy. So it's okay. It's part of the process. We all have to go through those years, and we feel things to a maximum level when our brain chemistry is out of whack. So that's why when our friends don't invite us to the movies, it's like the biggest deal in the world, and our world is going to crumble down, and how can they not invite me, and what's wrong with me, and everyone hates me, and oh my God. It's a lot to deal with. I remember literally crying all of the time over everything because I was crazy. So we need to go through those tween years. However, they've gotten very extreme in this day and age, and a lot of it has to do with social media. Growing up, we were really lucky when we were in middle school to not have Facebook, and now they have Instagram and Snapchat and all of these things. So kids are bullying each other through those mediums, and a lot of kids jump into the tween years, stage two, when they are 9 years old and not supposed to be there. So really, tweens should be starting when you're like 12-ish years old. For many, it's 11, and now it's probably 9. I see my little cousins, they act like tweens and they're in elementary school. So that's an unfortunate circumstance that we're dealing with, and why it's really important that if you have children, that you allow them to experience childhood for as long as possible. And eventually everyone gets to that point. Even if you go to a tribe, you're going to have awkward little teenagers. That's part of life. You're supposed to go through those stages, but it's not supposed to be that you're on full blast on social media. And a lot of kids do some really mean things because they don't understand the repercussions of it. And people really suffer from that, and it scars them for the rest of their lives. So I want you to think about your tween years, between maybe you were 11 or 12 till I would say you're like 15 years old. And what was that like for you? Are there any memories that come up? Do you feel like you got the support that you needed from your family at that time? Are there any traumas from your tween years that you still look back on and feel hurt about? Was it safe for you to express yourself in those tween years? I remember I loved the Spice Girls, so I wanted to have their posters all over my room. And my dad was like, "No, you can't have the posters up." And I'm like, "No, I need them. I need them." It was like the biggest deal. So we came to this agreement that for every poster I had of the Spice Girls, I needed to put one world map on the wall. So I would hide the world maps, like kind of like behind the closet, like in like places I don't really look at, and like have like Baby Spice first thing when I wake up. And now, looking back on it, though it seemed totally weird and unfair at the time, I literally am so good at geography because I've had these maps on my wall my whole life. So, some of the things that may have seemed like traumas at the time are actually good things. I remember another time when I was like 13, I like told my parents I was going to a bat mitzvah and I went like down to the hood. I went through a very hood stage and like I went to like a party and like was like changed my outfit, and then my parents obviously figured out that I wasn't at the bat mitzvah. They had to come to like downtown Boston and get me at midnight. That was bad. So again, I was like, oh my God, no freedom. I'm not allowed to be the person I want to be. All I want to do is like go out there and grind. But really, them coming in was them being parents. So we have to also keep in mind that some things that are traumas were really there safe to protect us, but our mind may have perceived them as traumas at that time. So that's why it's really important to self reflect, because if you don't look back on it now with this lens of perspective that you have today, then your mind may still see it as a trauma and it will be stored in your cells as one. And you'll forever be operating from this place of, I was not able to express myself, I was not able to be free. And this is going to be an unrepressed problem that you hold in your cell memory, which is why it is so, so, so important to constantly revisit your life. When I was going through, my stages of very deep involvement, every single night I would go back and I would like think of a certain year of my life, like when I was 6, when I was 12, when I was whatever, and I would write every single month and try to think of what was going on at that time, which is really hard because you'll realize there are years of your life that you just don't really remember what happened. Like I was like, wait, like 1989, I don't even know. Like, well, like Y2K, that whole thing was going on. I don't know. So that enabled me to go back on these memories that I still know. We still remember all of these things. It's that we're not drawing back on them. If there was a trauma that happened to you in your life that every day you're thinking about, it's still going to be fresh in your mind because you're constantly revisiting it. But if there are little things that are stored in your cell memory that you don't think about, you're still carrying them as traumas, but you're not able to know what they are. And they're going to keep showing up and manifesting in different situations in your life. I am not loved. I am not good enough. I am not pretty enough. Whatever the story is that you told yourself. And you're going to keep on experiencing it. So it's so important. People say, stay present. Don't think of the past. No, you got to go in that past and dig deep and pull out the remains of what you are holding on to so you can discard the skeletons in the closet that are no longer serving you. I feel like that could be a rap song. So, tween years, think about those times. Then, stage 3, young adult. Fun, fun, fun. So, this is normally around age 15 to, I'd say, early college. And this is when it's all about me. So, you're declaring your independence and you're realizing for the first time that your parents weren't right about everything. So, in our childhood years, it's like parents know best, copy what they do, dress how they dress, talk how they talk. They are our guides on this planet. Tween years, it's like, oh my God, you don't understand me. I hate you. Go away. We're not even thinking rationally at this point. And then stage 3 is, okay, we're able to think a little bit more rationally, and we're able to express and show love for our parents and realize that they also aren't perfect, and they came with their own bags of insecurities and traumas and issues. And maybe what they've been telling us our whole lives isn't totally right. Maybe it is based off of what they know, what they've experienced, and also their time. They lived in a very, very different day and age than us. Think about how different it is for us when we grew up versus children right now. And think about 10 years from now what that's going to be. So it's radical, radical changes that are each of generation's upbringing has experienced. So in our young adult years, we start questioning things. And this is when we begin our experimentation phase. So we are testing limits. Maybe we start drinking, drugs, sex. We're getting in trouble. And if you look at, a high school or college party, this is basically all you see. It's all these kids like, what can we do that's just gonna really push the boundary of what's right? And I remember at my high school, there was this horrible thing called the senior scavenger hunt. And basically what this was when the seniors were graduating from school, a group of select, the most popular seniors in school, would write this atrocious list of things that people are supposed to do. And these things begin with maybe some illegal activities like, steal this from CVS, or steal a flamingo off someone's lawn, things like that. And it progressed, and you get certain points for each thing that you do. And it progresses into eat out your friend in front of the judges, or have a threesome in front of everyone, and things like that. And you got a certain number of points for each thing. So, one thing might be get punched in the face, and that's you get 1 point. But then if you steal the V from CVS, you're going to get 10 points or something. It's really, really so sad. And this is a tradition that has happened year after year after year at my high school for I don't know how long. Fortunately, as being a very old soul, I knew that weekend I needed to get away. So I went to New Hampshire with my parents, and I was I can't participate. I'm gone, because I did not want to be a part of that at all. So not every young adult goes through those phases. For me, it was never really a big thing. I'll talk more about this, but I had already started deeply traveling and volunteering in orphanages and building community centers and things like that when I was in high school. So I was not interested in drugs and sex and drinking and all that. I was the goody two shoes, but thank God for that, because looking back on it now, I see these people and where they're at, and it's not really great places. So we can experience imbalances of these things. If you're a young adult, and you might catch yourself in this experimentation phase to develop an addiction. Alcoholism, drug addiction starts in these years. So what we think is, I'm just young, I'm just in college, it's just fun and games, is actually creating a codependency on a substance that can last with you for the rest of your life. And not everyone who has done drugs and drinking and stuff in high school does become an addict at all. Some people go through a phase and they get out of it, but that has to do with, their own inner strength that they have, because no amount of community support can help you love yourself. And, I went to a great public school system that is one of the best in the country. But still, a lot of people fell through the cracks and they had loving and supportive parents, but it was because of their own view on themselves. So in this phase, a lot of people they they plummet and they they test the boundaries too much, and it's because they're not sure who they truly are, and they lose themselves in the conquest. So at this phase, it's really interesting because society tells you that you're supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you pick a major for college, and that's supposed to be your forever career. But really, you have no idea. So, like I remember I went to school for international relations and I did graduate with that. But while I was in undergrad, I became a certified sports nutritionist and a holistic health coach because I quickly realized that I was not, though I loved to volunteer internationally, being an international human rights lawyer was not the path for me. So a lot of people, they start college and they're business majors or this and that. And I think basically 90% of people don't end up working in whatever they majored in college in. And most people even change majors throughout their career. So don't be hard on yourself if that happens. So young adult years, I want you to think back on those years in your life. And maybe you're in them right now. So what was that like? What are some memories that come up for you in those young adult, wild, wild years? What was your relationship with your family like in those years? Do you feel like you received support from your school, your friends, your family, and your community in those years? Are there any specific friends that stand out to you that had a great impact on your life that you still can remember today? Were there any relationships that you were in these years that maybe you weren't acting as your highest self in? Were there any activities that you enjoyed doing back then that you may have given up now? And if you were able to give your young adult self one word of advice, or a sentence of advice, or two, what would it be? Talk to her. Tell her how much you love her. Tell her the words that she so badly needs to hear right now. Allow yourself to let go of any traumas that you experienced as a young adult. You have learned the lesson, and it is no longer serving you for your highest purpose. Deep years, right? We're not even halfway through. So maybe I'll break this up in 2 podcasts. We'll see how it goes. So stage 4, the midlife crisis. So most people, when they think of a midlife crisis, they think of a 50-year-old buying a convertible and dating their secretary. But that's not really what the midlife crisis is like. And I believe that actually for women, we experience this midlife crisis way earlier than men do. By earlier, I mean like mid-20s. So this is maybe our first. We maybe will have another midlife crisis later, but I really believe the true crisis is at these years. And it's something that I and so many people that I know have experienced. So the midlife crisis is when you realize that none of the parties or the brunches or whatever else you're spending your money and time on actually make you happy. So you may have acquired a lot of debt, and you're rethinking what you studied and if that's even what you want to do. And you're not sure what the next move after college or high school or whatever you did may be. So there's a lot of pressure to be happy because you're young and you don't have all these responsibilities and you have a great body, and people tell you, oh my God, if only I was in my 20s again. But really, you may feel miserable. And the fact that you feel miserable makes you feel even more miserable because you're like, wait, these are supposed to be the best years ever. I'm supposed to be super happy and like everything's supposed to be going right. And I'm supposed to have like the most amazing body, and none of that's true. Feel me on this one, guys? And social media definitely amplifies this because we see all of these other people who know what they're doing and they're traveling and they have these amazing jobs and some of them are getting married and all these things. And we just feel like total losers. And social media causes us to compare ourselves to everyone's highs when really we don't see their everyday life nor their lows. So on social media, as you guys know, you don't post about the traffic that you're sitting in and this and that, nor should you. But you're posting about the best points of your life. You know, like I'm posting about my book launch. Doesn't mean every day I have a new book coming out. It is like one book that's taken me 4 years to publish, but that's what you're seeing. So then you're thinking, oh my God, people have all these books out and this and that, when really you don't see that the day-to-day sacrifices in life and that shitty things happen all the time. Now, I don't think social media should be our outlet of expressing everything bad going on with us. We all have that friend on Facebook that's like, this isn't going right and that's not going right and I was crying today and da-da-da. And it's like, okay, like phone a friend. Like, this isn't the place. So I don't think that we should be using social media to share negative energy either, because frankly, no one wants to hear that. But we should just use it as a tool and know that it's not real life. It is a highly curated notion that you're putting out there of yourself. It is an advertisement. And we cannot compare ourselves to other people's advertisements because they're not the whole picture. So with social media, we're seeing all of these people's highs and we're comparing ourselves. Oh, I have this job, I don't like this, that, and then it makes us feel more and more depressed. So for a lot of people, that keeps them in their young adult years because they don't want to face that crisis. They don't want to look at their shit in the eyes and say, oh, wow, I've actually totally been living a lie up to this moment. Because that freaking hurts. And we all go through different crises. For some people, it might be, you quit your job and then maybe you just go into another job and then maybe you go into another job. And maybe it's like a series of different jobs as you're trying to find yourself, which I don't think is the best solution because you're never going to find yourself in work. You're going to find yourself in being and just being you. But again, not everyone is able to travel the world. Not everyone has the money to and things like that. Though I think people make a way bigger deal about it than it is. I mean, all the travels I did, I would go on volunteermatch.com. I would find free opportunities to go. There are even paid opportunities. And you can start a Kickstarter if you want to pay for your flight, or you can hustle and manifest enough money for your flight. And when you get to these countries, it's not that expensive. So I do believe everyone should have travel as an experience because through travel, you learn and you grow and you're taken out of your comfort zone, and everything that you thought about yourself, you begin to rethink. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I want to travel to figure out who I am. And it's not that when you travel, you figure out who you are, but you figure out who you are not because you are taken out of the daily routine and the parents and the friends and, the maybe 3-4 places that you frequent on a daily basis. And you're taken out of all of that. And then suddenly you're confronted by people with totally different values and approaches to life than you. And it makes you reevaluate your own. So in my own midlife crisis, after I graduated from Boston University, I was in India. I had already been traveling to India, but from India, I got extremely sick. I never get sick in India, and I eat everything there. And I got super, super sick. I still don't know what it is, probably parasital infection or something. And I couldn't move. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. I was just throwing up for weeks. And I decided I needed to leave India. It was my time there was done for now. And I bought a ticket to Bali and I thought, that's exactly what I need right now. I need just clean food and water and a little bit of lightness going on because India, especially if you're working in the slums like I was, can be really, really intense. And you see a lot of horrible atrocities going on there. So I went to Bali. I thought, I don't know how long I'll stay. Maybe it will be 2 weeks or so. And I ended up staying for the next 4 months. I'll do another podcast episode about all that happened there. But I just stayed with random Balinese families. I would go on Airbnb and stay with them. I never paid more than $12 a night for my accommodation. And in that time, I rethought basically everything that I knew was to be true. And it wasn't immediate. I wasn't oh, now that I'm in Bali, I'm going to rethink of everything. But it was through a series of events and discomforts that made me realize oh, wow, this is not how I want to live my life. This is not what I want my future to be like. These are not what my values are. And I rethought so many things that I was taught, like, just from small things to, if you like a guy, play hard to get, because that's the only way he's going to like you back. So like, don't show your emotions, and like just how backwards and wrong that is. It's like, imagine if you want to have a friend and you're like a bitch to that friend to like get them to be friends with you back. Like, it literally doesn't make sense. But I was hyper taught that because I'm Persian. In the Persian upbringing, it's like, oh, if you ever show your interest in someone, you're a whore. So I was always taught, don't make eye contact with guys. They always want something from you. Really stay in your place. And even if you like them, don't talk to them. Make sure you're like never in the same area as them. Like, backwards shit. So I rethought of so many things about what kind of family I want when I grow up, and things that I want to do differently from the way that I was brought up. And it was a really tough time with my family as well, because they were losing their daughter. And really, I was becoming who I was truly meant to be. But for them, it was a death, because I no longer related to them the same way. And, me and my mom, for fun, we used to go to shopping malls every single weekend, and we would buy this and that and go to sales. And like, I was not interested in that at all anymore. In fact, like, a shopping mall still is for me a form of physical torture. So this midlife crisis is when you rethink who you truly are. And I encourage you to travel, because that allows you to get out of all of the frames of comfort and structure that you've placed upon yourself, so you can break down those walls and see yourself for who you are, and also decide who you want to be, because we have free will. That is our right. And we can choose to create our own realities. And we can choose every single thought that we want to carry on. And, there can be thoughts that have been forced into your cells since the moment you were born. Like, for me, achievement, be the best, be number one. All of these things that were taught to me from an ancient Persian perspective, that I was like, no, that's not really what I want to carry anymore. I don't want to have a white picket fence and a minivan and like live my life for my kids and not have anything of my own, because that's what I have seen with my own family. And, for them, that was all they had, like, my grandmother was in a child marriage when she was 14 years old. My other one, when she had her first kid when she was 18, married at 16. So a lot of suppression in my family coming from the Middle East. And these are things that I don't want to carry anymore. And a lot of our ancestral bondage we carry with us today. And, we all have had family traumas in the past, many of which that we are not even aware of. So whatever has happened to our ancestors is also part of ourselves. And now science has shown that if your grandma went through a trauma, that actually changes your DNA. But we are able to rewrite the story and reframe that paradigm. And if we choose to no longer make that our reality, it's gone. But it takes becoming conscious of it first, because we cannot change who we are when we have no idea. So this is the time that I think you should travel, you should try new things, you should, experiment life in different ways. I genuinely thought at that point, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in Bali. I'm going to or maybe I'll go spend some time in India. There's a whole spiritual community that they spend their time in Thailand, India, Bali, just traveling, no care in the world. And that's kind of how I wanted to live my life. The total opposite of how I was brought up. So that brings me to my next stage. So first, I want you to think about, maybe you're going through it right now. Like, what is that midlife crisis like for you? First of all, do you feel like you have experienced that type of midlife crisis? And I genuinely believe you all have, if you're listening to this. And I think a lot of you are going through it right now. Because if you're this deep into the Highest Self podcast, you definitely have rethought and reprogrammed some beliefs. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. So I think a lot of you are in that midlife crisis because you're right now figuring out who is this highest self? What makes me happy? What makes me me? What makes me unique? How do I want to express myself and show up in this very, very short life that I've been given on this planet, in this body? So, what is that crisis like for you? What are the thoughts and beliefs that you are shedding? What are the attachments that you are willing to let go of? What are you trying to create at this time? What are experiences you feel that your soul needs right now for your highest evolvement? So, once you've gotten in touch with these parts of yourself, and I invite you to share them in the Mind Body Balancers Facebook group as well, we begin to figure out really what our message is and who we are, and what are the things we want to put in our bags and bring with us, and the things that we want to leave behind. And this is a gradual process. This takes months and years to occur, and it's always moving and changing because we're always every single day tested, and like things like traveling can become setbacks for us. So we're always reevaluating and changing and scoping. But eventually we get to this point that we try out this first identity. So this is stage 5. So I call this you're trying out your first identity. And this means that you've kind of created this perspective of who you think you are at this time, and you go for it full force. And for some of us, this ends up sticking for a long time, but for most of us, this ends up changing again. So this first identity might be, you know what, I'm a fashionista. I want to create a fashion blog. I want to do this. And you start doing it and you start going all in, and you think, this is who I'm meant to become. And you might, spend a few years of your life living at this job, living this way, being this person. But the reason I say it's your first identity is because I don't think we hit the nail on the head immediately. I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, you meditate, you decide who you are, and then you figure it out, and then life is all dandy. No. I think that there are stages in between that. So stage 5 is trying out this first identity of, maybe you're like, okay, who I am is I'm going to be this healer, or I'm going to be this traveler, or I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And this will be your identity for a period of time, but in your 20s and even early 30s, you're still changing and you're still growing and moving. So for me, this stage 5, this first identity, was as a traveler studying holistic healing systems from different countries, and, just being on the road. And that was really my personality, and that was who I was at this time. But it's changed for me since. So I don't think you immediately know. I think you have to try certain things and see how they fit you, and your needs are going to change one day. So, you're a very different person when you're 25 than you are when you're 30. And again, when you're 35, it's always changing, but the younger you are, the more drastic the changes are. So, stage 4, your first midlife crisis. Stage 5, try out your new identity. And that brings us into stage 6. So, stage 6 is when you rethink who you are. Now you have more experience, more knowledge, more awareness. You've seen the real world and seen what you like and what you don't like about it. And now you're finally beginning to do what you really want to do with your life, and realizing how little did you know when you were asked before college. So this is when you've reached a point of more stability and life is beginning to flow. So maybe you go back to school and you get your master's, or maybe you change jobs. Maybe you start your own business. So this is the time that you really begin putting your feet in the ground and creating your foundation of your work here on this planet. So I want you to think about stage 5 and stage 6. Maybe you're going through it right now. So what was that first identity, or maybe it's your current identity right now, that after speculation has come up for you? And maybe you've already experienced it and gone through it. So who were you after college? What was your first job? What was your first life like? How has that changed today? And think about your stage 6. So are you in this point where you feel more stable and life is beginning to flow and you're setting up the foundation of what you want to create? If not, what do you think that will be like? When you become more stable, what sort of foundation would you like to build? What do you want to put out there into this world? What needs to change to make you feel ready to put your life's work out there? Do you need to change cities? Do you need to end a relationship? Do you need to make that first step? Do you need to let go of your fear of failure? Do do you need to let go of your fear of being seen for your greatness? Do you need to let go of your story of, I can't support myself doing what I love? I think that's a really big one that a lot of us face, and I'll do another episode about, but the fear of, well, how can I do what I love? I won't make money that way. And that was a really, really big thing that I faced until last year. I was so told in my mind my whole life, you can never be a writer. Starving writers are like starving artists. Writers can't survive. You need to be realistic. You'll never find a job like this. You're never going to make it. Who do you think you are? I was always told that by my parents. And eventually, if you're constantly told something, you'll start to believe it. So even though I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to write books, I was so brainwashed to say, that's impossible. You'll never get a book deal. Who do you think you are? Get a normal job. And they kept pushing me to, work in real estate, which is like so not me. But again, it was their own fear of, they had never seen someone do something like this. They have never lived this kind of paradigm. So for them, they were telling me don't go for writing because they wanted me to stay safe, and they were afraid of me failing and not being able to support myself. So it's totally understandable. But if we carry someone else's story, we're going to live someone else's reality. And unless you want to end up exactly like your parents, I suggest you take their suggestion with a grain of pink Himalayan sea salt. Rethinking who you are. So I'm going to end this episode with stage 7 because we're getting long, and also because stage 7 is the stage that I am in. And I've written more stages up to 11. And the stages that I wrote, I have not experienced yet. So it's going to be a whole other experience sharing them, because I really was able to channel into what it must be like, but I've never experienced it. But so far, all of these stages are things that I've personally very, very deeply experienced. So stage 7, which is the last one of this episode, flow. 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 So this is when you've finally found your message. You've found your cause, your voice, your purpose, and nothing is going to stop you. So you've let go of your fears and your old conditionings and things like that. And you're also no longer bothered by people saying these things anymore because you're vibrating at another frequency. So for me, I really realized the stage was when my parents would tell me these things and I'm like, oh, actually it's not true because I have a book deal. But again, it took tons and tons and tons of me telling myself, believing it, acting upon it, manifesting it, etc., to get to that point. And once I shifted my perspective of, yes, I can make money doing what I love. Yes, I can be a professional writer. Yes, I can write about Ayurveda and have people listen to me, which was crazy talk for them. I was able to find my message, find my flow, enter stage 7. And it feels amazing. And when you're in stage 7, you go full throttle with your work and you are living your message. And you don't like anything that distracts you from your higher purpose, which is why when I was traveling, I was like, oh, I don't want to do all these things. I want to be podcasting and writing books and, working on my biz, because that's what I rather be doing. That's ecstasy for me at this time. I'm no longer in that stage of experimenting and seeing new things and questioning who I am. I'm like, I'd rather just build. So stage 7 is truly a time of structure and setting up routines that will last with you for not the rest of your life, but for the next, stage 7 is a very long stage. It's not like the other stages that can come for a year and leave. Stage 7 for some people does last us for the rest of our lives, but I'll discuss for women, especially if you have children, it ends up being a little bit differently because kids can really affect your DNA. They affect everything. So, and for men, it's very different because men don't have the same sort of like guilt that women have, that a lot of times also the guilt that women feel like when you have kids, like, oh my God, I need to be a good mom. I need to be there. So that takes us out of our flow. But fortunately now, because of the internet and things like that, we're able to be both flowing career women and children. But again, there's always opportunity cost. There's no such thing as free lunch, and it's always this give and take. And I'll discuss that all in the next episode. So flow is an amazing time because you are so passionate about what you're doing. And when you're in a state of flow, life keeps delivering you exactly what you need to get to that next stage. So doors keep opening and synchronicities keep happening. And, you go to a party and you meet the exact person that you needed to meet to get to the next stage of where you need to be. And you get invited to things and your thoughts become your reality, and things start moving at hyper speed, and you're connected with all the right people, and the universe is just like, yes, you know who you are, you're on your path, and I'm going to help you in this process. And it's such an exciting time. Some people become overwhelmed by it, but that's because they did not do the work and set up the foundation that you need to be in a state of flow. So I don't believe that being in you always need self-care. You always need to take care of yourself, but that doesn't mean, taking a few months off and escaping and, rethinking things. That means you didn't do the stages before, because if you've done the stages before, you've allowed yourself to have that crisis. You've allowed yourself to rethink who you are. You've tried your first identity. You've questioned it. You've tried out your new identity. You've allowed it to grow. You've built, and you've really done all the trial and error it takes to be in that state of flow. Then the flow don't stop. And the flow don't stop when not walking. No, but for real, like I asked Deepak this. I was watching one of his Facebook Lives. He always sends me his Facebook Lives every day. He's like the sweetest guy. So he was talking about meaningful synchronicities and coincidences and things like that. And I was like, do you think that we can live our lives forever this way? Like, I feel like this right now, that everything's just happening and moving so fast. Like, do you think that periods of rapid movement and flow need to be balanced by periods of inertia? Because that's always what we're told, that life can't always be this way, and you need to like go inwards in order to be outwards and things like that. And we're always told, like, if something's going really well, something really bad is about to happen. So wait for it. And I was like, kind of had that in my cells still, like, oh, this can't keep happening. It's just going really well right now, but brace myself. There's going to be a catastrophe soon. And he was like, Sahara, if life's not in a constant state of flow, then what's the point of life? And for him, he's like, of course, life has to be in the state of flow, because you always must be connected with your highest self and your mission. So this thought that, oh my God, like, things are going really well, so I need to settle down. And, people tell us this all the time. Like, I'm always told, like, girl, just take a break, relax, like, go on a vacation. And I tried. It's just not what I want. I'm so passionate and so energetic, and like doing things that distract me take away from my energy because I'm full on in stage 7. So I see this happening with so many people around me, and I think a lot of you guys are in stage 7 as well. So I see people, they're building retreat centers, and they are, working in an amazing company that is so aligned with where they want to be. And they have their own yoga practices where they have tons of private clients, and they are health coaches with thriving practices, or they have podcasts and write books, or they have their own jewelry companies, or they sell their art. And I see so many of you guys killing it. And it makes me so freaking happy, because that's what the world needs. The world needs more people in the state of flow. So that's why we need to honor the process. We need to get through all of the steps it takes to get there. But I promise you, once you get there, you're going to feel it, and it's going to feel so amazing that the moment you're not feeling it, you're going to know. And you'll know exactly what you need to do in order to get back. So to be in a state of flow, you need to have all your ducks in a row. You need to have your eating right. You need to be sleeping. You need to be taking care of your body. You need to be exercising. You need to have a community. You need to have routine. You need all of these things. Connection with nature. Letting go of toxic people. It's a constant state. Like for me, even at this time, like had toxic friendships, had to get rid of, had so many like little things that I realized were draining me of my energy that I was like, if I need to up level, I need to get rid of this. And it's hard. It's super hard, like, because you don't want to let go of friends. You don't want to let go of family members. You don't want to let go of all of these things because you've grown up with them. You're comfortable with them, but you need to in order to up level, and you will flow more rapidly when you are totally living in alignment with your truth. So I want you all to right now think about, are you in the state of flow right now? What is happening for you in this flow? How does it feel? And if you're not in the state of flow, what do you think it's going to feel like? Feel into its juiciness. Imagine all of these things happening to you. Live it. Picture your natural skincare line being sold at Sahara or wherever. Imagine people holding your book and walking to the park to read it. Picture the welcome circle at your retreat and the gratitude people feel for how life-changing it was at the end. Imagine whatever it is that is you living in a state of flow. And I want you to think of this every single night before you go to bed. And keep adding more to it. Notice the details, the smell, the taste, the sensations in your body. And the better you can imagine this coming to life, the more likely and the sooner it is going to happen. For me, I was picturing myself with Deepak Chopra, my lifelong idol. Someone who people laughed at me when I was like, oh, I want to have a foreword written by Deepak Chopra. They're like, oh, okay, sure. But I kept imagining it. I kept saying it's going to happen, telling my parents, you know what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. They're like, okay, sure. And now I'm looking at a book that says Sahara Rose Kitabi. And right under it, says with foreword by Deepak Chopra. And putting it out there in the future, manifesting right now, we will write a book together. It's been set out into the universe, so now you guys are all my witnesses. It's going to happen one day. So I'll end this podcast episode here because you've probably reached your destination and are sitting in the car at this point. So I'll let you go, and we'll continue this in a later episode. So honor the stages and don't rush, because we all want to get into the state of flow, but we haven't done the work that it takes to be there. So if you're in that stage of experimentation, experiment, try things. Just make sure they're not addictive or harmful. If you're in that stage of crisis that you don't know what you're doing, like allow yourself to think of all of the possibilities. Like I used to every day come up with a whole new lifestyle and identity and job and everything. I'm like, I'm going to create a skincare line. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Every single day it was something totally new. And it's not that you're confused, it's that you're open to experimentation. And that's an awesome thing. So don't let people tell you, oh, you're so confused, you don't know what you want in life. Like, no, you're figuring out what you want in life by trying on different hats. But at the same time, don't get stuck in a stage. And I'll talk about this in the episode that I do about my experience living in Bali, but a lot of people get stuck in experimentation and they live their lives like, Peter Pan's, and they're like looking for never ever land, and they're not facing that being in a state of flow takes realities. It takes paying bills. It takes like cleaning your apartment and, taking care of things that you might not want to. It's not always a big ecstatic dance party. But that's what it takes. That's what adulting or whatever is all about. And I don't really like this whole like, oh, adulting, because they make it seem like adulting is a really bad thing. But it means owning up to the responsibilities it takes to be an adult. And to be in a state of flow, you definitely need to. It's never going to be a free picnic. There are always going to be things you need to do. Like as soon as I'm done doing this, I need to clean my apartment and do laundry. Like, hello, it's not like I live and breathe butterflies all day. I mean, I try to even when I'm doing laundry, but life has that. So don't feel like in a state of flow, all of your issues are going to go away and everything's going to be a bouquet of roses. It's going to be realer than ever before, but it's going to be so worth it because every single day has purpose. And that is the ultimate form of happiness. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode 19. And I am so excited to be back. I have a lot of things I want to share with you. And if you haven't pre-ordered my book yet, The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, it's available on Amazon, and you can order it on Barnes & Nobles. It's for 40% off right now on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles until the book launch on August 8th. And I also have free bonuses that I'm offering, which you can find on my website. I put the link in the show notes and stuff, but it's eatfeelfresh.com. You can find free skincare guides and meal plans and webinars and all of these things that I'm going to be giving to you for being part of this and for purchasing a copy of my book, my beautiful book, and allowing my vision to come to life. So thank you all for being part of this process. And I'm going to start recording a bunch of episodes going through different chapters of the book and sharing your guys' questions about, the doshas and imbalances and home remedies and spirituality and chakras and koshas and intuition and all of these things that I talk about in the book. So I definitely want you guys to have a copy because I'm going to be referring to specific page numbers. I'm going to be like, okay, turn to page 120 and we're going to be discussing this. So you should have the book to kind of be able to participate in the rest of the podcast episodes about that. So The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's going to be in some bookstores too, but I suggest just pre-ordering it because it's 40% off and you can get free gifts. So why not? So thank you again. I love you so much and so grateful to be here on this journey with you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in my webinar, my book launch webinar party on August 8th. And I will post that link in the info as well. So love you guys. Namaste and have a beautiful rest of your day.